You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB. The tough questions off the turf. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
14 away from 2 in the final minute of the first half in Whangarei, where North Harbour have brought it back to 14-12 against the home side Northland. Northland 14, Harbour 12, approaching the end of the first half in this Bunnings NPC match. Great to welcome back to Weekend Sport our Australian correspondent Adam Peacock, who's been away for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but back now and in Sydney, where the Wallabies take on the All Blacks this afternoon. Maybe you can give us a weather report first of all, Adam. How's the weather there?
Piney, g'day. Great to be back chatting with you. It could not be better. There is the most perfect canvas to play running rugby. It's just a question of these two teams coming up against each other, whether they're bloody good enough to play running rugby and wow us all. I'm sure they'll get the opportunity. It's a dry day. It's 23 degrees. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. There's no wind. The track out there at the old Olympic Stadium is perfect. So, yeah, hopefully now that it's over to the 2 sets of 15 out there to give us a show.
How optimistic do you feel that the Wallabies can beat the All Blacks today?
Not very. I've got to be honest. I mean, what happened in Argentina was just paranormal almost. It was just so odd that you lead a game like that and play some pretty good stuff and grind out a victory the week before against a really tough opposition, as you guys know over there, after what happened about a month ago, and then serve that up for the balance of the game. It does feel like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But in a general sense, I do feel like what's on the horizon for rugby in Australia with a Lions tour and then home World Cup. It's galvanised the organisation a bit. So I do know of off-field appointments that are going on and they're attracting good people to the organisation. And now it's up to... And they're making the tough calls, but they see the right calls with a thing like the Melbourne Rebels. So this afternoon is just another little step. Whether it's a backward one, a sideways one, or a forward one remains to be seen. But it should be a good occasion out there, and hopefully they near enough fill it, and rugby can kind of get back on track with the general sporting public.
Well, Sydney's the centre of the Australasian sporting universe this weekend. NRL semi-finals ahead of the preliminary finals next week. Last night at Allianz, Sharks 26, Cowboys 18. Same venue tonight, I think. Roosters against your Manly Sea Eagles. Are you a chance?
We're a chance, but I just fear that our best player, and when he's 100% fit, I genuinely believe he's the best player in the competition, Tom Trbojevic. He's not 100%. He's got an MCL. He's got a shoulder problem. He's probably, I reckon, in the range of 50 to 60% fit. So that's going to make it tough. Our Manly's major strike weapon, it can't be what he can be. So how do they get around that after a pretty brutal semi-final last week against the Dogs, who are so valiant in defeat, up against the Roosters team, who were embarrassed in the first 20 minutes against Penrith, who are the benchmark, still remain the benchmark in rugby league. So painting all that picture for you, Piney, it paints a bleak one from a Manly perspective, but it still should be a pretty good game for the reasons advertised above. The conditions will be great, and they'll be able to chuck the ball around, and Manly like doing that. So they might cause the Roosters a few issues, but I expect the Roosters to go through. Last night I expected the Sharks to go through. They got the wobbly boots on, but really, what are they playing for? They're playing for the right to be beaten by Penrith and Melbourne on paper next week to get into the grand final. So we'll see.
Yeah, indeed. It just feels like, I don't know, you can't put Melbourne and Penrith into the grand final already, but it feels like in a couple of weeks that's the scenario we're going to be faced with. Anyway, that's all to come. Last night also at the SCG AFL preliminary finals, Sydney Swans 95, Port Adelaide 59, so the Swans far too strong. Now it's Geelong against Brisbane late this afternoon in the other semi. So we could have 2 non-Victorian teams in the grand final if the Lions win, yeah?
Yeah. It has happened on the odd occasion. It happened a lot around 20 years ago. I mean, Port played Brisbane in the grand final. Port Adelaide played Brisbane in the grand final. Sydney were playing West Coast in back-to-back grand finals. So it doesn't lose the sense of occasion. They'll still have 100,000 people there. But it does speak to the power shift. Even though people in Melbourne still believe that the the universe revolves around AFL footy in Melbourne. I mean, Mark Robinson, respected journo, he was on television through the week. He said something absolutely crazy. He said, you're going to have 40,000 there in Sydney on Friday night, and I can see in my lifetime AFL killing off rugby league in Sydney. Now, that is one of the more stupid, that's like saying the 2042 World Cup in football will be held on Pluto. That is just ridiculous. But it speaks of what Melbourne people think of AFL footy. It's like, it's great we have this national competition, but we run the world. We're the best type thing. So, people from outside of Melbourne will be quite, like a little smirk on the face if it's a non-Victorian grand final. But we'll find out this afternoon in a couple of hours' time. I think it's a 5 o'clock bounce out at MCG. Geelong are great. They're just so consistent, and Brisbane have done well to get to this stage, so it should be a bloody good game of footy.
Great to have you back on the radio, Adam. We'll do it again next Saturday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Barney.
Thanks, Adam. Adam Peacock, our Australian correspondent, round this time every Saturday afternoon.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.